Hello friends, and welcome to another weekly update video. It is our week, May the 23rd, ending May the 23rd. We are joined by a new special guest, the good looking one here that you're wondering who that is. John Rustin, Jerry Royal, I'm Mitch Prosser, the one whose face is made for radio, and Tucker Young, our summer intern.
Yay.
Tucker, thanks for joining our team. We've kind of thrown you in the deep end. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Tell us a little bit more about you. Tell them a little bit more about you.
Yes. So I am Tucker Young. I'm from the Raleigh area. Been there my entire life. I am a rising sophomore at UNC Chapel Hill, and I am NC Family's summer intern. I'm really looking forward to learning more about public policy and politics and how to do that from a faith perspective.
And you really enjoy it here, right?
I do really enjoy it.
That's right.
It's been a great first week.
Tell us about your week. I mean, you got kind of indoctrination by fire down at the General Assembly after the crossover deadline had passed, but the week that the House was debating their budget, and the Senate actually had a good bit of stuff going on as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Tuesday and Wednesday, I was down at the General Assembly. That was the first time I'd done that. And it was just a really great experience to, kind of get accumulated with all of the processes that the House and Senate go through. The budget, there was a lot of heated budget talks, so that was certainly entertaining. But overall, just a great experience to get comfortable and integrated into the system.
Cool.
We're glad you're a part of the team for the summer, and we look forward to many great things ahead during the summer and for you in the future. John, one of the things before we get to the budget, because there's a lot to talk about here, and Jerry, we've been tracking this. John, we had a great Raleigh dinner last week. Tell those that are listening who might have been there, and if you weren't, a little bit more about our Raleigh dinner last week.
Sure. Last Thursday night at the Angus Barn Pavilion, had a great group of folks, is always the case. For our Raleigh dinner, Dr. Brad Wilcox was our featured speaker, our keynote speaker for the evening, and shared about just the fundamental importance of marriage and family. And I think his message clearly resonated with everybody at the dinner. And, this is something that we talk about, family being the building block of our society. But what he had to share just really talked about some of the cultural challenges, the societal challenges that we're facing right now. But that there is hope for the future.
That's right.
But that hope really depends, first of all, on our relationship with the Lord and honoring the structure that God has created for marriage and for family and for the raising of children. But then how we can take practical steps, both individually and as a culture, to create an environment that really helps to foster strong families, strong marriages, and a stable society. So, Jerry, I don't know if you have other...
No, it's great, and it's interesting, too, because we all know from a biblical perspective what God's design is. And you kind of go, well, how does public policy fit in? Well, that's part of what this organization does, Institute for Family Studies. They look, and then I think the people we know, people on their staff who are Christians, but they look at the social, scientific, medical evidence, and they see the importance that marriage has, what it means for men, women, and children. And actually, we'll get to it a little bit talking about the budget.
Yes, we
Thankfully, in the House proposed budget, there are fatherhood initiatives. So there are things that can be happening even in our school systems, other things in our society that you think, well, does government have a role? Well, if they can encourage positive family outcomes, government certainly can be part of that.
Yeah. One of the things that Dr. Wilcox talked about, and you'll hear a lot more from us in the months, weeks, years ahead, is the success sequence and how that can be implemented to ensure that people are successful and that families don't just survive, but that families truly thrive here in the state of North Carolina.
And that sequence speaks to individuals getting a high school diploma and maybe going on to college, and then securing a job, earning income, then getting married, and then having children.
Yes.
And if individuals follow that success sequence, it's been proven to significantly reduce the potential that they'll end up in poverty. It significantly increases their likelihood that they will experience just success, happy marriage, happy families, and that sort of thing. Right. So it's a great initiative, a great standard that we want to promote for North Carolina and for our nation.
Yeah. And one last quick side note on that. In that success sequence, just like you say, John, the poverty rate, people who follow that path, 3%. And that's one of the huge issues in every part of life, is public policy. How do we address the poverty issue? This is something, if we start helping young people understand, follow this sequence in your life, and this will resolve a lot of the financial issues you could otherwise face.
As we often talk about, when man's laws are in line with biblical principles, good things are going to happen. There's going to be peace and prosperity. Families and individuals are going to flourish. But when man's laws are out of line with biblical principles, then chaos results. And the society, the relationships between people don't operate the way that they're intended. And so, these are great examples. What Dr. Wilcox shared are great examples of the application of biblical principles and God's timeless intention for us, and how that kind of connects or intersects with the way that we relate individually and to each other, and also in our relationship with the Lord. Yeah.
Speaking of finances, thriving, for those of you who have been tracking, there's been a process now to get to where we've been this past week with the House version of the budget. First, the governor introduced his budget. Then the Senate introduced, because it's the biennium in which the budget originates from that chamber, the Senate introduced their budget and then sent it over to the House, where the House has processed and worked through their idea of what the budget should be. So let's talk a little bit about what the House's budget is, what it was, and what we think it's going to be moving forward. Let's talk a little bit about what happened this past week with the House budget.
Well, the House put out their proposed budget at the beginning of the week. It went through committees. That goes through a process of going through several committees that are relevant, whether it's the Finance Committee, the Appropriations Committees, Pensions and Retirement, looking at retirement benefits for state employees, that sort of thing. And so it goes through a lot of steps. And when they have the bill before the full Appropriations Committee, there were quite a few amendments that were offered by members. Some were adopted, many were not. And then once it passes that step, then it goes to the House floor. And so the House proposed budget was considered on the House floor on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. There were a lot of amendments that were offered, again, on the floor, some that were adopted, but a vast majority that were not accepted, because it's one of these bills that shows a clear distinction between the philosophies of the Republicans who are in the majority and the Democrats who are in the minority. And while I say that, we see philosophical differences. The budget actually passed the final reading, at least at this stage of that process, on a very bipartisan vote of 86-20, which is pretty substantial, and a vote on the budget that we have not seen a bipartisan vote on the budget in that neighborhood in quite a while.
And that was the second day's vote. The first
Right.
day's vote,
Well, even
it was
stronger.
over 90 votes. Some of the members were absent on the second day, which is amazing. It was over half the Democrat members voted for the budget. That is unique in the history of what I can remember about budget votes.
Certainly in recent years.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
an article has been written about this by our team, our leader John Rustin, and our team here. You can read that article. We'll provide the link to that article down in the links below this video so that you can read a full-length synopsis of the budget, including some very key features of that. Tucker, you sat in the gallery and watched a lot of these amendments take place. You tracked a lot of those as well. What was your thought on how the debate progressed and how these amendments were handled as you watched it from the gallery of the House?
Yeah, I think there was some really key important efforts from the budget to stuff like the pregnancy care fellowship opportunities that are, really legislation that is going to, move for pro-life and, whether it's working for ultrasound machines so that mothers can see a picture of their child. This is all going to kind of help us protect life in North Carolina. And then something like opportunity scholarships, where we're
Sorry, I didn't mean
looking,
to.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
we're looking for to kind of promote that school choice.
Excellent. Very good.
You may just kind of run through a quick, and this is covered in the document that Mitch referenced that'll be below the video, but just on the issue of taxes, and these are kind of the highlights from the budget from our perspective. The budget is The House version of the budget's 530-something pages long.
Just a few pages.
So there's a lot in there. But regarding taxes, the House budget would do things like increase the state level income tax standard deduction by $500 for individuals filing, and then $1,000 for married couples filing jointly. It would also reinstate the back-to-school sales tax holiday, which we had a number of years ago, but that went away. And this would allow tax-free purchases of things like clothing, school supplies, school instruction materials, computers, and sports and recreational equipment during the first week in August. Again, tax-free so that parents and families can save money as they're getting ready to send kids back to school. The House budget also makes adjustments to the trigger amounts for scheduled reductions in the personal income tax in North Carolina. Now, this has been a difference between the House and Senate budgets that's become a little bit controversial. There are actually some groups and individuals that have characterized this as like a tax increase, because what it does is simply delay the implementation of a continuation of the reduction of the individual income tax in North Carolina. House budget leaders have told NC Family, as we state in our document, that the adjustments to the tax reduction triggers in the House budget are not only prudent, considering future economic forecasts, but also ensure, and this is incredibly important, also ensure that the state does not have to rely on revenues from things like gambling expansion and marijuana legalization in order to balance the state budget. And we saw a lot of debate on that this last legislative session. So we're very, very grateful for the House leadership and the prudent approach that they took to this budget, to not, look at or rely on gambling expansion or marijuana legalization to help try to balance the budget.
It's huge. Very good. Jerry, what else did we see in the budget? What do the people need to know about what happened this week with the House budget?
Well, I think your insight on two of the critical issues that we follow with sanctity of human life and the money that's going to the Pregnancy Care Fellowship. A lot of the debate and some of the amendments that were proposed, you see the difference in worldviews. Some people wanted to take that money away from the pregnancy centers and put them in other areas. Now, granted, they had some good programs for children, families, and it was real interesting. I don't want to, I guess, belabor that, but it's one of those things where you realize it is, a lot of it's worldview and God opening people's hearts and minds. They're saying, I don't see any proof of where children and mothers are being helped with this money for the pregnancy centers. And you're going, I mean, nobody said it because anyway, sometimes that debate happens in other settings and committees, but you're going, no, we're talking about hundreds, thousands of unborn children's lives who are saved. That's a huge impact that happens in part because God works through the pregnancy centers. Right. The other big distinction we saw, and a lot of debate on that as well, was the money for opportunity scholarships, for educational freedom. People who want to make a decision to have their child in a different setting, and there are people who are going, and it is true, it's whatever, 80% of students are in public schools. Yes, there needs to be proper funding for that, but they also need to recognize for some families, some children, there needs to be an opportunity to choose other options for their education. Those two issues, which you saw and heard in a big way, were a big part of the debate throughout the whole discussion.
And the House budget appropriates over $12 million for pregnancy resource centers and other pro-life efforts, initiatives in North Carolina, so $12.5 million. The budget bill continues the increased appropriation for opportunity scholarships well into the future, and also maintained it being a universal program that's available to all North Carolina families, but based on a sliding scale depending upon household income.
The other thing that we mentioned at the top of the show with that success sequence and setting families up to thrive was the fatherhood initiatives that have taken place here in the state. The budget also allocates resources to those
$5 million,
which is incredible,
for fatherhood initiatives
over the next 2 years, which is very encouraging to know that there will be programs like All Pro Dads here in the state of North Carolina, bolstering and encouraging men to step up to the role of being a dad in the life of their children. Yeah. So that's encouraging. I know that's very near and dear to our hearts, not only as individual men who are dads, but also as will one day be a dad, but also as an organization that focuses truly on what it means for families to thrive here in the state of North Carolina.
Mitch, I really love what these provisions, the fatherhood provisions in the budget, say the intent of the programs is, quote, to recognize and support the important and unique role that fathers play in ensuring the physical, emotional, and economic well-being of their children and families. And that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
That is why these initiatives are so important, and we're so excited to see them included in the House version of the budget.
So what can people expect in the next few weeks as the budget continues to progress?
So the budget now has passed the House. Now it goes back to the Senate. The Senate will vote either to concur or not to concur with the changes to the budget that they initiated. Our expectation is, because of the different priorities and things in the budgets, that the Senate is not going to concur with the House budget. They will send the bill to a conference committee. The House and Senate leadership will appoint members of their respective chambers to come together in a conference committee to try to iron out the differences in the different chambers' versions of the bills. And so we don't know how long this is going to take. I imagine some of those conversations are already taking place, some of those negotiations. So we will see exactly what happens in the coming weeks and months.
One thing is, and I know we all ideally want the budget to be decided on by the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. And we all are hopeful every year. Invariably, it goes beyond that, one or two exceptions. But I thought it was interesting. I don't know why I'm sharing this, but everybody knows this. But even, I don't want to say even, but especially the Democrat leader in the House yesterday in the discussion, he said, we like a lot of the things that are happening here in the House. I'm willing to stay here on through the summer if that's what's needed for us to arrive at a good budget that keeps a lot of these proposals in it that people are agreeing on. So a note that I want to say I'm encouraged about this week also, up until this point, the only bills that have been brought up in both chambers and passed have related to hurricane relief.
Yes.
But actually this week, while the House was debating the budget, the
You're
Senate...
ahead of me, Jerry. I like it.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, it's good.
Yeah.
You did it.
The Senate, all of a sudden on the calendar, I saw, oh good, they're bringing up some House bills in committee. And one of the things that I saw happen, I want to say is a very encouraging sign. We've shared with y'all before some of the bills relating to social media, cell phone use, things in school, where they're saying we need some policy to ask the local governing bodies with the schools to make policy decisions. Well, the Senate took one of the House bills, and then I think there were 4 bills that had passed unanimously in the Senate relating to this subject area. They dropped it all into one bill in the Rules Committee and passed. And I'm going, okay, that's efficiency, where you take something where hopefully the House and the Senate are in agreement and they're moving on some positive things. I want to say that's a positive sign, hopefully, of what's to come with budget negotiations and other. I see John smiling, though. John maybe understands there's something else going on.
In another Senate committee, they took a number of House bills that were on the calendar and did what's called proposed committee substitutes, where they basically either replaced the entire contents of a bill or portions of a bill with what they want to do. And so they actually did that with several House bills. They took out the substance of the House bill, although the bill had a House number, and put in, just like you said, Jerry, a number of bills that had already passed the Senate. And so there is this interesting sort of dance.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
That's going on.
It's a two-step.
Between the chambers to sort of assert their priorities and work within the process and procedural mechanisms to try to advance things that are most important to them. So that, I think, is going to be a continuing theme for the remainder of this session, but we will see. I think by doing that, again, they sort of say, hey, these are the bills that are particularly important to us. Some of these bills they'd already passed the Senate earlier this session. The House had not brought them up, and so it's, again, the Senate saying, hey, we think these things are important. We want you to consider them. We're going to send them back to you in the form of a House bill, and the House is, kind of doing the same thing. So it's an interesting process. People have likened it to making sausage, something you don't necessarily want to see, but you hope the end product is tasty.
Oh, yeah.
And hearty for a great breakfast. So we'll see.
So we can very quickly bounce off of House Bill 959, what was known as the Social Media Literacy Bill. It is now and forever will be known as the Protecting Students in a Digital Age.
Until it changes.
Until it changes in the House. This was one of the bills that you talked about where they threw several bills into one, changed the name. It originally started as a school curriculum focused on teaching students the features, the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media and its usage. But now it does several other things, including an internet safety policy, which would prohibit the use of TikTok and ByteDance, the mother company of TikTok. Do students use TikTok? Tucker?
They do.
They do.
Tucker approved.
Not necessarily approved.
Not approved by him, but
Yeah.
he confirms the reality. He does not confirm of the. Never mind.
It's getting crowded in here.
On that note, no. It also promotes digital wellness through the original Bill 959 and ensuring that the Social Media Literacy Act stays intact.
Yep.
But then, one of the things that we talked a lot about early on was cell phone usage, but more broadly, in this case, wireless communication device usage in public school settings. So this bill now includes many smart devices to exclude smartwatches and calculators from the list of devices that would be prohibited during class time. It does allow the schools to set up a policy for themselves, or the school units, the districts, to set up a policy for themselves because they trust that the school districts will be wise enough to promote that within their own governing board.
Yeah, and that was the substance of a bill, as Jerry said, that had already passed the Senate, but they included it in this bill. So it has a variety of different measures in it. That does remind me too, Mitch, in the House budget, there was the substance of House Bill 301, which is the Social Media Protection Act for minors under 16, which basically prohibits minors under the age of 14 from having social media accounts and requires minors who are 14 or 15-year-olds, it says they can only get social media accounts with parental consent.
Yes.
And so that provision that has passed the House was included in the House version of the budget. So there's a lot of interest in this area of protecting kids from the harmful impacts of social media and being distracted from the instruction at school,
Yes.
from being distracted from their cell phones and that sort of thing. So we definitely expect to see ultimately some good things happen with respect to those measures.
And for kids like me, you don't need any more distractions. Trust me, the parents would all agree. Gentlemen, this coming weekend, as people are watching this, it's Memorial Day weekend. Of course, Monday we observe the Memorial Day holiday. Let's talk very briefly about that as we wrap up our update show today. Jerry, tell us your recollection and memories of Memorial Day.
Well, and this is what was helpful on the House floor.
Yeah.
Representative John Blust, who's an attorney, accountant, very bright. I mean, get too much into his biography, but it came out in what he said. The other day he commented, he said, my library has over 5,000 books in it.
Wow.
He quoted from a number of books just what our history is of our country and the vital role that the military has played in our nation's history, and how the military, he was quoting people who gave credit for the freedoms we have, freedom of speech, freedom of exercise of religion.
Yep.
He said, but for our military, these things wouldn't be in place. And so he said, the people who have given their lives so that we can have the lives we have today. And it was a wonderful history lesson for me to be encouraged about why it's important for us to celebrate Memorial Day and what people have done to make this country what it is today.
Well, and I think when we consider the conflicts that are taking place all across the globe, even now, and how fortunate we are in this country to just to be blessed by God, His hand of protection and hand of providence over our nation, and still, that we hope and pray that there remains a core of our society that honors God and still seeks to revere not only biblical principles, but just the sovereignty of God over our lives individually and over our nation and over our families. And it's just I think, a very important time for us to recognize the sacrifices that those who have gone before us have made for the purposes of enabling us to live in the greatest country on the planet.
We hope you enjoy the pool, the barbecue with the hot dogs and the hamburgers, the cheeseburgers, all of that good stuff. But it's more than that. It's an opportunity for us to honor, to celebrate, memorialize those men and women who have gone
Amen.
Before us.
Yeah.
So on behalf of, and make sure you go read that article from our team about the budget and so many other things this week. On behalf of Tucker, our new summer intern, Jerry, John, I'm Mitch, and the rest of our team here at North Carolina Family, thank you for watching this week's weekly update video.
God bless.